Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Sir Han on X, live from Cincinnati, Ohio, in the United States. Hope everyone had themselves a wonderful 17th of December in the calendar year 2024 today. Actually, a decent day here in Cincinnati, Florida, in the 50s. I got a chance to step outside and enjoy it a little bit. Um, actually, far cry from what it's been all the last few days here, especially nationwide, where colder weather. Um, Hope everyone had themselves a wonderful day today. Lots to get to. First of all, shout out to the guys that had me on their show earlier about the Usyk Fury rematch. I'll be talking more about that here as the week goes on. I gave my official prediction on that. You guys are more than welcome to find the link and listen to it. Um, I'll dive more through it on my show here at the end of the week, and I'll reiterate my position and why I made my stance. There's a lot of others to get to. I talk more a broad view of sports, not just boxing. Everybody knows me as one that's always boxing centric, but I have other areas I get into like NFL, NBA, baseball, and all that fun stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and use this platform for as I've been doing over the past few months. I do apologize for a little bit of the stuttering. My throat's not the greatest, but I made the promise I was going to do this, so I'm going to go ahead and go through with it. So we're going to get right down to it. The Monday night doubleheader last night basically was a snooze fest. I mean, we'll start with the Minnesota beating Chicago. Another solid game for Sam Darnold. Justin Jefferson, still Justin Jefferson. Arguably the a top two receiver in the NFL with Jamar Chase of Cincinnati. But that defense just beats people up, and it did it to Caleb Williams. Brian Flores, who basically is trying to get another chance in the NFL after the fiasco that took place in Miami, basically put his imprints on this team, and they basically just been wreaked havoc all season long. We may argue the top five defense overall in the NFL, and they have just been absolutely lights out. And they just basically just beat up Caleb Williams yesterday, pretty much. You got the big win at home to stay at pace with Detroit for the NFC North title. Game ahead of Green Bay in that regard. I think they clinched a playoff spot. With that defense, they're going to cause some problems in the NFC. Not saying they're going to win it all because there's still lots. There's more left to be determined. But right now, Brian Flores has that defense playing at a very, very, very high level, and you have to tip your hat off to them. They got the big win last night. You know they're going to the playoffs. Chicago, you were 4-2 at one point, but ever since that bad bounce off uh, the defender's head to Terry McLaurin and that to not Terry McLaurin, Lauren Noah Brown in that game against Washington, you fell off the map. It just messed you guys up psychologically. Of course, it didn't help your safety Stevenson decided to post to the Washington crowd before then. But ever since that point, you guys been getting your karma. And I said all along, I would have rather drafted Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams right now. Not want to say I told you so, but I let the results speak for themselves. But kudos to Minnesota on a solid win at home. Still in the fight for the NFC North title. Looks like it'll come down to that week 18 matchup when Minnesota travels to Detroit. Should be a good one for that division crown. Now, of course, the other one, basically, if you wanted to fall asleep, just turn that game on because it was a snooze fest. It was the Falcons over the Raiders. The Raiders are the Raiders. We know this. But Atlanta was basically nothing short of abysmal. I mean, you only scored 15 points on the Las Vegas Raiders. The same Las Vegas Raiders that Pittsburgh and Cincinnati effortlessly put 30 plus. That's what I needed to know. When you only put 15 points on a team that Cincinnati puts 41 on, you're a sad story. And that's pretty much why the Atlanta Falcons are a sad story, even though they won the game. I'm trying to keep pace with Tampa for that NFC South title. They do have a head-to-head tiebreaker because they swept the series, but largely because Baker Mayfield didn't have any receivers to throw to. But neither as it may, they won the game, but nothing to go fancy over because they're staring at either Minnesota or Green Bay or Detroit in the first round. If they manage to supplant Tampa Bay for the division, and all three, I think, are just going to wipe the field with them. Actually, Minnesota already did that once already. So not necessarily a doubleheader worth talking about. I thought maybe, the teams that have nothing to play for, they'd be more inspired. They're not. Raiders probably are tanking for a pick at this point because they need help all over the place. Bears, I don't know where they're going to go. They wanted Caleb Williams. They got him. They got Roma Dunze as a receiver. They got him. But they're still not going anywhere. And there's still questions need to be asked in Chicago as to what they need to do. So we'll see how this goes. Playoff time is coming up. Minnesota's clinched. Atlanta still trying to fight Tampa for that last spot. Basically, whoever wins the NFC South between those two teams is going to the playoffs because the winner's probably going to have an 8-9 or 9-8 season, like more than likely. But speaking of more football news, of course, the more news about the De'Vonde Campbell and the fallout from the other day. You guys know he essentially quit on the team simply because he didn't want to abide by an order that was placed by Kyle Shanahan. Basically, he didn't want to go in because Dan Greenlaw basically was starting to feel soreness from his Achilles injury from last season. And of course, Shavarius Ward, who lost a child, a 1-year-old child, basically just threw him under the bus, calling him a sucker. You can translate it all you want. Now, De'Vondre Lenoir and Nick Bosa basically just called the guy cancer and threw him under the bus. And even turns out Nick Bosa said that this guy was starting stuff before the game, before they left the locker room. But as I said before, this guy probably should not be on an NFL roster ever again, simply because this is a cancer, as Lenoir would eloquently say. It's going to be on a roster, and everybody's seen firsthand what happened and what the story was, where he just basically ignored Kyle Shanahan when he basically said Shanahan told him to go in for a play and he wouldn't. I mean, basically, it sounded like this was building up and this was coming for a while simply because the 49ers said this was coming, especially when Nick Bosa basically said, you basically don't care anymore and you basically just have no desire to play. We want nothing to do with you. That's just all you need to know, especially from your team defensive captain. You can say a lot of things about Nick Bosa, but when Nick Bosa says something like that and it's proven to be true, there's a problem. And of course, 49ers just cleaned out his locker, took off his nameplate and all that stuff. But, they did the right thing, parking him for the rest of the season. They can now void his contract where he doesn't get paid, so he can't go to another team. But honestly, I don't know who would want him because the guy basically just ignored the coaching staff. That's not going to end well for him in the long run. I'd be surprised if he's on an NFL roster next season after all of this. And speaking of guys who were placed on suspension, turns out that Azeez Al-Shaair, after his whack of Trevor Lawrence, just lost out on a $9 million something weird with a contract simply because of the hit. And I guess he also lost $300,000 in game checks because of the hit and the suspension. Well, I can't say I don't feel sorry for him because he should have kept his hands to himself. Actually, more or less his forearm to himself because the forearm whacked Trevor Lawrence upside the head. And we have idiots in Houston who's trying to defend it because they don't know how to be something else other than idiots in Houston. We're talking about idiots in Houston. But Azeez Al-Shaair got exactly what he deserved. I mean, basically, I thought the 3-game suspension was softer than a cotton tissue. I mean, lighter than a slap on the wrist. Guy should have been suspended for at least the rest of the season, and probably chunks of next season just to send a message across the league that that's intolerable. But losing out on $9 million says a whole lot about what happens when you play stupid games and you're going to wind up winning stupid prizes. That's what happened here in this case. I mean, he wanted to do what he did to Trevor Lawrence. He did it, and he basically got the stupid prize of losing out on $9 million and sitting out 3 games. And oh, by the way, those next 2 games of the 3, they're playing the Chiefs and the Ravens. Good luck with that. Lucky you clinched the division title, and you're probably going to be locked in on the 4 seed because you're not going anywhere at this point. You might as well just sit the guys and let the rest of the season just play out. But even Al-Shaair got exactly what he deserved from that cheap shot he delivered to Trevor Lawrence. I mean, if you still think that was a clean hit, get checked for CTE because it was not a clean hit. I'm surprised. I'm surprised not the entire Jacksonville bench decided to beat his brains in at that point because they should have gone ahead and done that. So now to a weird story that took place here in Cincinnati. This is from three ugly-looking cross-eyed stooges who works for some idiotic, if I can read this correctly, idiotic local media site called Chatterbox Sports. I don't know their names, but I know they're three ugly-looking individuals simply because they don't know how to look better. They don't know how they're too lazy to get up and shave their face. That's what I gotta say about because they live in Cincinnati. They're putting the blame of the season on Evan McPherson, their kicker. They're saying the team is 6-8 because Evan McPherson missed kicks. He once against Baltimore. He missed a couple in Los Angeles against the Chargers, and even a couple of other big ones here. Your fan base is resorting to blaming a poor season on a kicker. I don't know what the hell to tell you because you're just lacking in character as a human being, and badly too. You're blaming the season on the kicker, not your historically bad defense, not your so-called $55 million starting quarterback who's had 9 fumbles this season and basically had 3 intentional turnovers in the win Sunday. Not your so-called standout linebacker Jermaine Pratt, who acts like he knows how to tackle but misses tackles all over the place. You're blaming your season on a kicker. You're blaming your season on a kicker. Not the play calling of Zach Taylor and Lou Anarumo. You're blaming it on the kicker. The more I see Bengals fans, the more I see Cincinnati media people, the more I see Cincinnati idiots on these social media apps, the more I get amused at the idiocy and the blatant cowardice and intentional stupidity that goes on in Cincinnati. Well, first of all, Evan McPherson's had a down year since his rookie, has been 50-50 since his rookie year. Everybody knows this. And yes, he signed the contract extension, which I didn't have a problem with, and he's been worse ever since. A bit worse since then. Now, of course, he's on the IR, gets some kind of knee or hamstring injury for what it is. But I said this all along. This season wasn't lost because a kicker can't make kicks. Your season was lost from week 1 when the guys weren't man enough to beat the New England Patriots. It was over. It was over at that point. I mean, you're at a point now. You're still hanging on by a thread, hoping to get all the help possible to get in the playoffs. I mean, it's somewhat doable, but good luck trying to win in Pittsburgh in the season finale because Pittsburgh's going to dog walk you again. But we have idiots and morons in Cincinnati who legitimately think Evan McPherson is the reason why the Bengals are where they're at. It's on a site called Chatterbox Sports. If you see it, you'll hear it. It's a total intentional idiocy that I've ever came across. I mean, Bengals fans and Bengals media people make ignorant excuses and total jackasses of themselves in Cincinnati day in and day out for some of the most egregious and moronic things you could ever come out of a human being's mouth. But to blame a season on a kicker, you're blaming it on a kicker. That could be the most Cincinnati thing imaginable. You're blaming, you're not making the playoffs because of a kicker. That's what it comes down to. I don't care about the X's and O's. I don't care about this game. I don't care about that game. I don't care about what happened today, what happened tomorrow, what happens 3 weeks down the road or a month behind us. You're blaming an entire season on a kicker. This came after you were gift wrapped at least perception wise, a 3-1 start to start the season, having to play New England, Washington, and Carolina. New England and Washington basically dog walked you. You lucked out because New England didn't have much of an offense. And the game against Washington, you guys scored 2 garbage touchdowns in a game that basically was over at that point. I mean, you got burnt by an offensive tackle. That's all I need to know. Don't say I'm lying because I was at the Washington game. I have the evidence to prove it. But I just cannot wait to see the excuses now that comes out when you guys officially miss the playoffs. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, I'm going to be licking my chops because I might just start a new session next year called Sizzling Steak with Sirhan, where I'm just going to put the steak and just sizzle you guys till there's nothing left for you guys to sizzle. Because you guys make yourselves look like morons and cowards every day. First, you're blaming the referees. You're blaming now you're blaming commentators. You go attack other fan bases with screenshots and stealing profile pics. You attack Zach Taylor's wife on social media. You guys just recently broke into Joe Burrow's house, and now you're coming out here blaming the kicker. I don't even want to know what's next. I'm just gonna sit back and just laugh at how much of the morons you guys are. You know, Zim, Captain, Sarah, and all you idiots out there. It's funny. It's absolutely funny because I said all along, if you're gonna win with dignity, you better lose with dignity. You might as well pull up a clip from boxer Donovan Razor Ruddock after he was knocked out by Lennox Lewis, because that's what he said. You guys could learn a thing or two from him. But this was coming from after you guys lost the AFC title game to Kansas City in 2022. You guys playing the NFL conspiracy card because you guys have nothing better to do with your lives, because you guys are a bunch of moronic cowards. But I'm just going to sit here and just watch. I'll just deal with you guys when the season's over, because I'm going to just have a 1-hour segment just to grill the hell out of you guys. I'm ready. Enough of the Bengals in Cincinnati. Now to the big topic in college football. This is the one-time standout Atlanta Falcons quarterback Michael Vick. Apparently, discussions with the Sacramento State. I think another institution I would say is Norfolk State to become their head coach. Michael Vick, the great quarterback for Atlanta, spent time with Philly. Of course, he does commentary with Fox. Probably one of the greatest redemption stories you could ever read about on God's green earth. Now, remind you, this is coming from a guy who's done volunteer work for animal shelters himself. That I just have to sit back and applaud Michael Vick for basically owning whatever he did. He did his crime, he did his time, and now he's going to be a head coach someplace. Like he's going to be a head coach someplace. He's an analyst for Fox. He was on Undisputed with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp. Done a tremendous job turning his life around. We have idiots who still think, especially in the animal rights activists, whoever the hell these douchebag cowards are, who still think otherwise. Every human being deserves a second chance, no matter what it is. If you can basically repent and own what you did, and come out and just prove the world that you can, you deserve a second chance. Michael Vick does. I mean, he's earned it, and he basically earned it the hard way. I mean, it started when he came out of prison, and Andy Reid, who was then the coach of the Eagles, took him in and gave him his opportunity. He made the most of it for a couple solid seasons over there in Philly. So, of course, Sacramento State, I believe, is looking to, with all the nil package, I believe they put something like over $500,000 to put themselves in those FBS 1 schools where they can be like one of those big conferences. But a terrific story for Michael Vick. You can say a lot of things about him, but one thing you can't say is since he's got out of jail, he's basically been a model citizen, taking advantage of a golden opportunity to rebuild his life, and to even be considered for an opportunity like this. I think it speaks to the hard work he put in. I mean, he did what he did in that dog rink, and he did his time for it. I mean, we might as well just wrap it. It's done. I mean, he did his crime, owned it, did his time, did it. He's out. He's a different man. He's basically owned everything. So hopefully he does get the job to complete this redemption story, and it is something that is very, very, basically heartwarming in a time when we can use stories like this, because when criminals get out of prison, just generally speaking, their re-entering to society is always filled with, challenges. Michael Vick certainly was, because remember, he was in a federal prison, got out, basically owned the whole thing. When he went to Philadelphia, basically Andy Reid took him under his wing, because Andy Reid has a couple of his sons with massive legal issues. I'm not going to get into it, but he did it with Michael Vick, and ever since, Michael Vick has become a model citizen and has basically made the most of the second chance that he was given when he was released from prison, and now it looks like he's going to become a coach someplace. And basically, Michael Vick can just use his experiences to teach the younger generations as to what to do and what not to do. So if he does get it, absolutely kudos to Michael Vick. I mean, say what you may, Do what you want. Have the opinion you want. I don't care. Again, this is coming from a guy who did voluntary work in animal shelters himself, and and has a full-time dog lover myself, who on knowledge wasn't hip with didn't like what Michael Vick did, but never had a problem with him turning his life around if he's given a second chance and shows he's a model citizen. And Michael Vick did that. He deserves a lot of props, not a lot of hate. So that concludes my all my football conversation. I was at the topic today about Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury. Kudos to all you guys that have me on the show. Great stuff. I look forward to chatting up with more of you later. I'll actually use this platform to talk about Usyk Fury later on in the week. But one thing I find interesting is now all of a sudden, there's rumors flying around that people want Wladimir Klitschko back in the ring. Well, first of all, the guy's going through whatever in Ukraine. We know what that's all about. I'm not even going to use it. Now you want to talk about it. The guy's 48 years old. We're talking about him fighting Martin Bakole simply because Archie Campbell is a coward for ducking by Bakole. The last two fights, I mean, basically he got his ears boxed off by Tyson Fury, where he looked real old. And really, outside of 3 or 4 of the middle rounds against Anthony Joshua, even the one time where he floored him, he didn't look all that great either. And I think like he fought since that Joshua fight was 2017. Now they're talking about him coming back and fighting Martin Bakole, who just steamrolled Jared Anderson effortlessly, so bad that Archie Campbell turned into a coward and ducked him. Yeah, Archie Campbell is a coward who ducked him. We all know this. Don't come to me with anything. I'm not entertaining it. But what are we gaining by having a 48-year-old who's basically in a country in the midst of a war coming back into the ring and fighting probably the most dangerous heavyweight in the world in Martin Bakole? I mean, you guys want Wladimir Klitschko steamrolled and killed? Because Bakole's going to steamroll him in less than 5 rounds like he did to Jared Anderson. I mean, I can't see Vlad after 7 years off. And the last 2 times, he looked his age. You asking this guy to come back 7 years later against a heavyweight who's steamrolling everybody right now and expect Wladimir Klitschko to turn back the hands of time and actually have a chance? I mean, I like to see him come back. I like to see him, if he can get it all together, I like to see it. But the evidence is there. I mean, last time he didn't get anything done against Tyson Fury, and he didn't look all that great against Anthony Joshua aside of the round he floored him in. I mean, the guy's going to get steamrolled by Bakole if that fight does happen. Question I have is, why can't you guys just leave this guy alone? Why you guys are so insistent on letting this guy come back, especially Turk Al-Sheikh? So, of course, more to come on that one down the line. I will entertain discussions about it later. Now to a fight that is on again, off again, on again, off again, on again, off again, and is now on again. Naoya Inoue and Sam the Coward Goodman. Sam the Coward Goodman make the cut so he can have the extra month off. We're like a cut with basically the equivalent of having a thumb scratch across your damn eye. But we all know Sam Goodman is a coward because he wants no parts of Naoya Inoue. Gets got rescheduled to January of next year because Sam Goodman wants to be a coward and try to buy more time for the inevitable, which is going to be Naoya Inoue, dusting him off, like a sack of potatoes at a produce store. That's going to be that easy for him. Sam Goodman knows he does not belong in the ring with Naoya Inoue, and he's gift-wrapped a chance. But now he resorts to this simply because he knows he has no chance. Now he has a cut, not as bad as a paper cut. I mean, think about that. And he uses that as an excuse to dodge Naoya Inoue for a 3rd time. I will tell you, I mean, it's not as bad as Riddick Bowe throwing a belt in the garbage can to duck Lennox Lewis, but this might be challenging it because he not only ducked him once, not only did he duck him twice, he ducked him 3 times, especially after we consider the fact he went to Japan after Inoue beat Louis Neary and said to his face, I'm gonna take the titles from you and bring them back to Australia. All the guy's done has been a coward ever since. A blatant coward. That's Sam Goodman. Let's see if he goes through this fight and if he's man enough to take the beating that he deserves, because we all know he's a coward We know he doesn't stand no chance against Naoya Inoue, who's the second best fighter in the world. And more importantly, we can just, if once Naoya Inoue beats him, we can just out him out of society forever because the guy's just a bona fide coward. Just like Isaac Campbell is for ducking Martin Bacoli. Boy, our sport's gotten real, real weird, hasn't it? With all this ducking and, people saying this, people saying that. Well, of course, another fight that, one of the official announcements today was David Benavidez and David Morrell, the scuffle that took place, the accusations about wanting to do VADA testing. Well, of course, we know David Benavidez's manager is known for steroid distribution, so don't miss me with that. Of course, there was speculation about him not wanting to do a drug test after the win over Alexander Gvozdyk. But of course, this is the same coward who flunked cocaine test twice. The same coward who flunked cocaine test twice. Now the guy feels a need to shove David Morrell for whatever reason of this pre-fight presser. Of course, people all over the place trying to get in the middle. I don't know what was said and done, excuse me, but David Benavidez carried himself like a coward per usual. I remind you, this guy was supposed to be Canelo Alvarez's mandatory, but ducked it to move up to light heavyweight because he's a coward. And now he's mandatory for the winner of the upcoming Better Beef Beevil rematch, which he wants nothing part of because he's a coward. Instead, he wants to fight David Morrell. Let me wish you nothing but the best. Let me wish David Morrell the best of luck because it would be a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing if he disposes of David Benavidez. Gets the world of this coward once and for all. I don't want to hear about Canelo Alvarez ducking him because that never happened. Canelo Alvarez guaranteed one of the $200 million. It's called pricing yourself out. But guess what? Guess who has the room to guarantee himself $200 million? Canelo Alvarez. He's a cash cow right now, like it or not. David Benavidez doesn't have a leg to stand on. Actually, after Canelo's win over Jaime Munguia, he invited David Benavidez into the ring, and like the coward he is, David Benavidez wanted no parts of it. Of course, we know why he wanted no parts of it, because there were no cocaine lines for David Benavidez to snort. That's his favorite thing to do, snort cocaine lines. But Benavidez Morrell, it's going to be a compelling fight. David Morrell's got a style that can make anyone of Benavidez's caliber look bad. I mean, he was mediocre against Kalajic in his last fight. That's because Kalajic was basically fighting to survive. And this is a fight he's wanted for a while because to get to the next level, he would have to go through a guy like Benavidez. Benavidez is the mandatory for, Canelo, Beevil, Better Beef, however you want to pronounce it, say it. He wouldn't beat any of them. But this fight, Benavidez Morrell, you don't see 200 feet of guys come up like this, and we're going to have something when this fight happens. Hopefully, David Benavidez can learn how to quit cocaine, quit being a coward, and keep his hands to himself before the fight happens. Because that's his only chance of beating David Morrell. His only chance. Now to the historical part of the fight game today. We're going back 70 years. We talk about persistence. We talk about taking the hard road in the sport of boxing. Maybe no one ever took a harder road than Archie Moore. And he cashed out big 70 years ago in St. Louis, Missouri, when he fought Joey Maxim for the undisputed light heavyweight championship and won it. Archie Moore was basically one of those grit and grind fighters who just kept going and kept going and kept going. Was basically looking for an opportunity and a breakthrough just to get a shot at the light heavyweight championship. Sort of the same thing Ezra Charles had for the longest time. Charles never got the opportunity. Charles went up to light heavyweight. Ezra Charles went up to heavyweight, Moore eventually pursued a light heavyweight till at age 39. He got a shot at the undisputed light heavyweight championship against Joey Maxim. Now, again, let me remind you, idiots in the boxing community again, because you guys don't get it. This is the one belt era where one belt was winner take all, not fake championships like Daniel Dubois has. Real championships where one belt was it. Archie Moore was fighting for it because Joey Maxim possessed it. Maxim, of course, not too far removed from beating Sugar Ray Robinson, but said the fight happened. He got the win largely because they were fighting in exhausting heat conditions as Sugar Ray Robinson was about to pass out and collapse. He had gone on to the final round, but Robinson was giving Maxim a boxing lesson. But in this particular fight, Archie Moore did anything and everything he wanted to. Every time he hit Maxim, Maxim would grab and clinch. From about the third round on, it seemed like Maxim just wanted to survive the 15-round distance because Moore basically did anything and everything he wanted to. I mean, the only exception was he lost a point for a low blow in the fourth round, but that's about it. I mean, the scores were closer than the fight actually was. What's new in our sport when we talk about judges? It was the same thing back then. Archie Moore, basically, from like the sixth round on, it started really pouring on, especially in the 10th round where he really hurt Maxim and had Maxim really hanging on. And it got to a point to where Maxim just wanted to survive the distance, and Archie Moore basically just hit him with anything and everything he wanted to. And when the decision was announced, it was Archie Moore, the winner by unanimous decision, to win the undisputed one belt light heavyweight championship of the world. At age 39, at that time, he was the oldest to win any world championship. This goes to show if you keep at it, you keep at it, and you keep at it, you persevere, you persevere, you persevere, you keep grinding, and you keep grinding, you're going to eventually hit pay dirt. That's what Archie Moore did 70 years ago in St. Louis. Or a top 5 all-time great light heavyweight, mass over 190 wins, 130 plus knockouts, numbers we're never going to see again. Of course, this win led to 2 other light heavyweight championship matchups between Maxim and Moore, where Moore won 2 more unanimous decisions, basically the same way because Archie Moore was just a man amongst boys at that point. Archie Moore, that right hand of his was lethal. I mean, if you generate 130 knockouts in your career, you're doing something right, and that's what Archie Moore did. I mean, Joey Maxim has fought just hung on to survive for the rest of the way for this fight, and Archie Moore, probably the most brutal puncher of his era. That's the only thing he was known for. Left hooks, right crosses, and basically, at this point, when he finally hit pay dirt 70 years ago today. I mean, talk about other fighters that took this sort of a hard road. Marvin Hagler did, Pernell Whitaker did, the case for Bernard Hopkins did, Lennox Lewis did. Maybe no one had it harder than Archie Moore, because you're talking about a guy who fought deep into his 30s at a time when fighting into your 30s, people were calling for your head if you fought past 35. I mean, I referred my documentary yesterday about Dick Tiger, who people were calling for his head at 37. All he did was go up and beat Jose Torres and win a belt. Archie Moore's fighting for a championship at age 39 against one of the premier guys of that era in Joey Maxim, and wins a 15-round unanimous decision. Because sometimes fighters, they could be late bloomers. Archie Moore was the perfect example of that for that era. Basically, fought anybody and everyone at that time, beat all comers, reigned for a while as a light heavyweight champ. I believe it was like about 9 years. The only reason why he was stripped of the title was due to inactivity. But Archie Moore got to that point at age 39. He could do whatever the heck he wanted. You're talking about a fighter who had 190 plus wins, 130 plus knockouts. Numbers we're never going to see again. And basically set a new standard and set records at that time probably were not going to be touched. We talk about the gold standard of the light heavyweight division. Guys like him, Ezra Charles, and Michael Spinks are at the top of the heap. Throwing guys like Gene Tunney, Bob Foster, Jimmy Bivens, among many others. Lots of great names. But in the gold standard of the light heavyweight division, Archie Moore is among the top. He basically hit that gold standard and proved it 70 years ago today in St. Louis. And we talk about the upcoming Bevo Better Beef rematch. A lot of people calling whoever wins this fight the greatest light heavyweight ever. Archie Moore is turning in his grave. So too is Ezra Charles, because they fought 3 times, and they didn't need belts or some Riyadh season or whatever. When you knew Ezra Charles and Archie Moore were getting ready to step in the ring, that's all you needed to know. because those two were the king of the crop in the light heavyweight division. Well, I wish we could go back to the one belt days because these governing bodies are an absolute joke and a half. I mean, I was on the show earlier. They were talking about Daniel Dubois' belt. I didn't want to bring up what it really was because some people will get a little antsy and hurt over it. But this is just to remind people what the era was in the 50s and the 60s. It wasn't about positioning for governing bodies. It wasn't about shelling out under the radar dollars for ratings manipulation. It wasn't about the fact that people were wanted to complain about paying behind a paywall for fights. Basically, they said, if you want to go, we're just going to go. Archie Moore was basically one of those guys, one of the last of a dying breed at that time because sport was starting to transition a little bit at that point. But Archie Moore finally, after many, many years of hard work, dedication, and perseverance, hit the top of the mountain 70 years ago today when he beat Joey Maxim to win the one belt, undisputed light heavyweight championship of the world. He did it the hard way. And for those of people who say fighters are given gifts, Archie Moore wasn't given a gift. He had to go out and earn it the hard way, and he did just that. May God rest the soul of the great Archie Moore. And on that note, that will wrap up an edition of Sirhan on X. Hope everyone has themselves a wonderful 17th of December, 2024. Later on tonight, for my football followers, I will be on a Spaces to talk some NFL. I will be back with this show tomorrow night. And until then, hope everyone has themselves a wonderful night. Take care of yourselves. God bless and enjoy the day.